Hey, thanks for joining me today for episode 5 of Business in the Bedroom, a bootstrapper's guide to doing it. I'm your host, Jemmy Legagneur, and today I'm going to talk to you about jacking and jilling, also known as learning to do everything. This episode is brought to you by Flintstone Media. Listen in and let's do this. So, what can a girl who learned a lot about both podcasting and web development know about figuring out how to do stuff on her own? Well, a lot. So I talked in episodes 3 and 4 about how important it is to begin building and managing your online portfolio and reputation. But all of this takes work that you may not yet be able to afford to outsource. Work that it can include, for example, building and managing your website. Everything from designing it in the first place to then building it out. Can be updating it with new info, copy, images, stuff like that. Or also maintaining it, like for security issues, keeping your platform updated, your plugins updated, all of that kind of stuff. Other kind of work that probably is stuff that you have to do no matter what you're doing includes graphic design. Could be like creating your logos or graphics that you might want to use on social media or in flyers or pamphlets or designing your business card, all that kind of stuff. It could also be social media, which also includes graphic design like above, but also drafting the copy that goes with that image on Instagram or whatever. Keeping up with viral trends, looking up hashtags, learning new tools, setting alerts. All of that goes into social media. It could also be professional services like editing, if you're a writer. It could be accounting, payroll, if you're starting to build a team, and human services kind of stuff. It could be legal services. I mean, the list goes on about all the kind of stuff that goes into naturally doing whatever it is you're trying to do when you're building a business. There are all these adjunct little tasks that also have to get done. So when do you know whether to take care of it yourself or to contract it to a specialist? So for the record, when it comes to legal stuff, tax stuff, that kind of stuff, please always use a lawyer, use an accountant, use like a super professional person. I mean, for the simple stuff, you can use a tried and true online service like LegalZoom, for example. But trust me, as someone who has been to law school and is related to lawyers, there are situations where you simply don't know what you don't know. And you should pretty much always assume that in a legal situation, you don't know what you don't know. It is really always going to be one of those situations. And as someone with a finance degree who's also worked within an accounting environment, I would also add accounting and tax stuff to this list too. I mean, in cases of law and taxes and all that kind of stuff, you just have to accept that the system is stacked against you. If you don't walk into it with an expert, it's stacked against you. Trust me. I've been on all sides of the law, and you don't want to, well, that sounds really bad. You don't want to get tangled into it, okay? It sounds really like I've been into some super secretive, interesting stuff. It's not that interesting. So aside from law school, I also have served on jury duty. Random side note, super fun experience. It gets a bad rap. I think it can be really amazing. I got to do that, so that was pretty cool. I look forward to doing it again one day. And I also worked as a legal analyst, so I got to actually represent a company in court all the time. So I've seen all kinds of court proceedings. Shell out the cash, okay? Hire a lawyer. If you're dealing with tax stuff, hire an accountant. Can't stress those 2 points enough. But other than that, I think there's definitely room for you to take on some of the other kind of stuff, some of those other responsibilities yourself for a while. You just have to learn how to do them. So how do you do that? All right, let's start with graphic design. So you're going to want to keep your eye out for opportunities for super cheap online learning. The one that I used back in the day, which is still going strong and adding new courses that I see popping up all the time, they send me emails, is Shaw Academy. So look up Shaw Academy. They always have deals. I actually got a really good deal where I have a lifetime membership now. I don't pay for it anymore, so it's pretty awesome. I don't think they'll ever do that again, but they pop up with new deals all the time, and they have really, really good courses. So check out Shaw Academy, SHAW. I'll include a link in the show notes. But luckily for you, we are in the prime age of online learning. Yay, pandemic, right? No. Okay. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing online courses and masterclasses popping up all over the place. They're advertised on social media, commercials on TV and YouTube, just everywhere. There are probably ads for online courses in the other podcasts that you listen to, right? Like they're everywhere. So just look into them and do your due diligence, but they can be a really great way to learn stuff super cheap. But do your due diligence. You don't want like a Trump University certificate situation. Like that's not going to get you very far, okay? So yeah, I first learned graphic design and how to use tools like Photoshop and stuff through Shaw Academy. Again, I'll include a link to them in the show notes. They're not paying me to do that. I was very a satisfied customer, guys. And then I just found every excuse to practice. Making logos, designing backgrounds for stuff, whatever. I found every excuse I could to practice what I was learning through the online courses. So do that. And then, as I mentioned in episode 4, I discovered that there also are all kinds of other tools just like at your fingertips that are free or close to free, and you've probably already paid for them as part of something else. Okay. So as an example, if you have the Windows suite on your computer and you have Word and Excel and all that stuff, like there you go. Word and PowerPoint are 2 perfectly good pieces of software to use for basic graphic design stuff. There are lots of good functions in there if you just explore a little bit. There's a draw function. Also, same thing. If you are a Google member, so if you have a Gmail account or something like that, go check out all the different fun tools that they have in your Google. There's Google Docs, there's Google Slides. So those are just like Word. Those are just like PowerPoint. And they have a lot of great functionality in there for creating graphics and doing like all kinds of drawing tools and stuff like that. So right at your fingertips, and you probably already have it right there. But then there's also online services that do come with a price tag, but they're usually pretty cheap, like Canva or some other kind of program with really good text and graphic functionality. So Google it, ask your friends, but Canva's one that's become really popular. I use it myself. And also there are a ton of online sites that are great as like helpful free tools for some quick touch-ups and things you might want to do on your graphic design projects. So I'll include some of my favorites in a post on Patreon. So look that up on Patreon, link to that's in the show notes. And then when you get there, you can check out the post, and I'll include at least 3 that I'm thinking of right now at the top of my head. And I use them a lot. So like turning backgrounds transparent, or if I see that I have a logo from a client and then I want to mimic the colors in their logo when I'm putting a proposal together to make them feel extra special. So I'll want to pull what that color is from that logo and find out what that color palette is. There's a tool to do that, guys. It's super easy. So I'll include these links to these great graphic website tools in a Patreon post so you can see that. So the question for each of these parts, like I'm talking about graphic design right now, right? The question is, where do you draw the line? No pun intended. When do you draw the line as to what you do yourself versus what you contract out? Well, I'll say that you want to turn it over to a professional, to someone who has that skill set when it challenges your own professional reputation. Like if you don't have the skills to put out a really good end product, to create a really good logo for yourself or whatever, you still have to really make yourself look good. Rewind back to episode 3 if you don't remember why. Okay, all about building your portfolio and the importance of a professional reputation. Episode 3. So if you feel like the skills that you're building are going to fall short of representing the brand that you're trying to build properly, then turn it over to a professional. So, as an example, I've built up good enough graphic design skills that I actually put together the logo for this show using Canva. So, shout out to Canva. Case in point, the logo for this show was created using Canva. And I did that myself. And that was just through learning their software and figuring things out. But then also, there's an aesthetic you got to learn over time, certain rules of graphic design and what makes things look good. And so that just comes with practice. And through practice and then through learning how to use certain tools like Canva, I ended up making the logo for this show. I hope you like it. If not, then someone else made it. I also created the logo for the Florida Podcast Network and for one of my other shows, Florida Podcasting News. So I created those logos as well. But if you look at the logo for another show I host called Finding Florida, there's a lot more graphic design expertise embedded in that show art. So I put the design together for it, the concept piece. Like I pulled some basic elements. I just Google search for this and that. And I basically made like a kindergartner art project version of what I wanted as a visual for the actual professional graphic designer. And then my co-host Glenn sent my concept, my kindergarten concept, off to said graphic designer because I knew I couldn't pull it off, right? I know where my limit is. And so you just have to know your skill set limits. Like I can create a great logo up to a certain point. So that's when you need to know. So if you're trying to figure out where do I draw the line? How do I know if it is worth my dollars to hire somebody? Then you just want to make sure that you don't make your public reputation pay a price. Okay. So just know your own skill set limits and then find a professional when you need. And on a similar note, social media works in that kind of the same way. I mean, it's one of those things that unless you are taking a formal course on it, which there are probably tons of online courses for that too, you really just learn it by doing it, at least the basics, right? Most of us are using social media anyway. So just maybe dig in a little more into how people specifically in your industry are using it, or in the industry that you're trying to break into are using it. What are their particular tricks or techniques that you see working for those people that you emulate online? What are the hashtags that can help you find your customer niche, those kinds of things. So you can learn those basics that you already know about social media and just take them to a little bit of a next level and then engage. The key to social media, no matter who's doing it, whether it's someone you're paying to do it or you're running it yourself, I've seen the most successful accounts be those that constantly engage. So putting up posts, commenting on other people's things, stuff like that. So just get into a regular practice and habit. Even if that means sometimes you quarter off a section of your weekend and put some posts together that you can then schedule and plan out and then, just automate throughout the week, then do that. That's one way to handle social media. And if you're pretty skilled and you want to level up, then you can look into like how to keep up with viral trends or even how to create them. You can Google search for all kinds of articles and tips and tricks. And I'm sure there are tons of YouTube videos where people can give you advice on how to do social media better. And also another thing you can do is setting up Google Alerts. So Google Alerts notify you when certain keywords are posted or published. And that's a really good way of monitoring the news about your own brand and the industry that you're in. So if you go to Google and you can set up some Google Alerts, and then whenever, those keywords are put out there into the universe, then you're going to get a little notification with a link to that article or whatever. So that can then be something that you're notified about and you share with your audience. And that helps you stay current. Yay, social media. But also learn the new tools. Any chance you get, at least try out new stuff. You never know what's going to hit you and what you're really going to connect with. True story. I gave Snapchat 3 tries. 3 tries. I never got the hang of it. I failed every time, but I gave it 3 tries. I was willing to try something new. That just didn't work for me. But as new social media tools are popping up every day, give them a try. You never know what's going to connect. So on that note, where do you draw the line when it comes to social media? Well, if it feels like social media is very stressful for you, but you can't outsource it yet, just stick with the platforms that you already know. Learn how to just work that one or two or maybe three platforms better. My core three are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then I do use LinkedIn quite a bit, but those are my three. And I constantly am learning how to work them better. And then when you want to make larger impacts and invest some money into the whole process of social media, work with someone. There's so much to learn about the craft of social media and how to make it impactful. So if you're going to start putting a bit of budget behind it, like, to boost posts and stuff like that, if any money is coming out of your pocket, I would set some of that aside for the influence of an expert. Whether that means an expert who's there just to give you advice and consult with you, or if you can, an expert who handles it full stop. It'll make whatever dollars you do put into boosting, into marketing, and into paying for anything that you do pay for in terms of social media, it'll make those dollars stretch that much further. I can't stress that enough. Again, it's one of those situations where you just don't know what you don't know. I mean, I could say to watch YouTube videos and stuff, but with social media, it's honestly changing every day. And even just which little icon and which little corner of that app, that function you're looking for is now hiding behind. I mean, it can be a real pain in the ass, those apps. So use an expert when you can. And even if it's just to advise you. So that's where I would draw the line. If you feel like it's just too stressful for you, stick with what you know. And then anything beyond that, seek the help of an expert if you're going to put dollars into it anyway. And then the next thing I want to talk about is building and managing your website. So this is one of those things that I think everyone should learn the basics. Not necessarily maybe about building the website, but the basics, like how to put up posts and how to change images and stuff like that. I've provided web design and development services for years now. So I've been on both ends, both the person needing a change to be made on a website and the person who's been tasked with making a change on the website. And even with someone who is very, very responsive, it can still take like half a day for a small change to be made on your site. And if you're building your own thing, your own brand, and if you're anything like me, you're very opinionated and particular about what you want to see represent your brand, right? And you. And in particular, if you are very like me and have a hard time truly knowing what you want until you see it, and then you're just like, oh, that's it. I know. That's it. There it is. Then yeah, you want to save yourself a lot of time and frustration and probably money by just learning to do the simple things on your own. So the simple things, especially if you have a WordPress site or a Squarespace site, Wix, any of that stuff, simple things you should learn to do on your own. Updating site copy, okay? Changing the text on a page. You should learn to do that on your own. Changing out an image, swapping out an image. You should learn how to do that on your own. Adding in a news or a blog post, a whole post about some new event or something great that you achieved in your business or whatever. Being able to put that up. Sometimes you want it up right away so that you can then share it right away on your social media. And you don't have to wait a whole day for someone to get around to it because they have a million other things to do for other clients. So learning how to add a news or a blog post and make it still look good can be very helpful. Changing the background colors of things, all those little changes, anything little stuff like that you even might just think of in the spur of the moment. You happen to be looking at your website for something and something catches your eye, like, oh, the phone number on my contact page really needs to be changed. That updated like a week ago. You want to be able to know how to go in and just change it yourself. So those are all the simple things that I would include under that umbrella. But where do you draw the line, right? So with the heavier stuff, unless you are super confident in your tech skills, unless the business that you're building is itself like a web services business, right, you probably want to get an expert. You want to have a good developer in your pocket that you can rely on. I use an awesome guy on Upwork named Nahid. I've used him for years for all the real icky stuff. Like if there's a site issue and I haven't figured it out in half an hour and it's some whatever tricks and tools that I normally can do and everything finally works out fine and it's great. If I can't figure it out and I can't get past that point, Nahid, I need your help, man. And I tag him in because I have other things to do. I need to focus back on my business. And thankfully, after years, I'm in a position to be able to do that. But I think no matter what, if it comes to you risking making a mistake in the back end of your website that could make your website crash, if it comes to making sure your website is properly updated and maintained, if it comes to making sure your website's secure, all of that stuff, you don't want to break it, okay? You don't want to break any of that stuff. I've built dozens of websites from the ground up, but even I still rely on a developer who is super skilled and focused on that knowledge set and keeping up with all of that stuff so he can keep my stuff running well. So get an expert to update your plugins, update your site platforms, and all that kind of stuff. Like that's where I would draw the line. And so that's my advice to you when it comes to stuff for your website. But learn the basics. I can't tell you enough, no matter what you're doing, how helpful that is. So the bottom line is that the benefits of knowing these things, they're pretty obvious, right? They can save you a lot of time. You don't have to wait for emails back for someone else to handle it. You can handle something in real time as you need it done. It also can save you money because if your skill set and what you need to do, if they're a good match and you can rise to the occasion and handle something yourself, then you can save yourself lots of money, right? But you also need to know your own skill limits. Be honest with yourself. When it comes to video editing, for example, I learned the super basics, like enough to create an amateurish intro or outro for a YouTube channel. That's about it, right? But to create a professional video and product, I use an expert like Neil Yarty of Wild Style Media. Shout out to Neil. He's amazing. So how did I come to learn all of these things on my own? Well, a lot of it is through everything I've just described above. It really was just taking the time to learn it. A lot of Google searches, a lot of YouTube searches, a lot of calling a friend and asking, a lot of posting on Facebook groups, looking for help and that kind of stuff. So a lot of it I just learned on my own. But a lot of the stuff I also learned as part of the various jobs that I've had over the years. So my point is that if you ever have the opportunity to learn these kinds of skills that seem like side skills and you don't really understand why you would ever need them, but you're learning them on the job that you're in right now while you're thinking about building a business on your own, if you have the opportunity to learn those kinds of things while someone is paying you to do it, then learn it. Okay? Learn it. If you're being paid, whatever you're doing now to pay your bills gives you the opportunity to learn a little graphic design, to learn a little web development, to learn a little video editing or whatever, social media work, learn to do it. Take advantage. Remember in episode 3, when I brought up that saying about when you have the opportunity to sweep the floors, you just sweep the heck out of them, right? You do the best you can. Well, this is the perfect kind of situation where that applies. So if you have a chance in your current job to learn and practice the tasks that can help you save some time and money in the future when you're trying to break out on your own, do it. Learn it now so you can kill it later. So when I was putting this episode together, I was like, wow, there's a key thought right there. Learn while you're in the space that you're in. I'm going to put that somewhere. Learn while you're in the space that you're in. Sometimes you get lucky and you get to have not only tasks at a job that can help you in your future independent time of your life when you're building your business, but sometimes you also have a really good mentor in that space there to show you the ropes. Sometimes you need to find a good mentor, though. So I'll give you tips on a future episode about how to do that, because I think that having a good mentor, having someone who you can constantly reach out to get advice on this stuff is really, really key. Also really, really key in another subject but related subject of a future episode is finding a tribe. So we're going to talk about all of that because all of that stuff feeds into and helps you achieve everything we've talked about on this episode. So how can you learn all the things that may be particular to you and the dreams that you're trying to go for that I'm completely unfamiliar with myself? Well, this is where I refer you to our mutual friend, Google, or advise you to ask a friend or to turn to a Facebook group for advice, all the kinds of things that I did. Because other than that, honestly, I don't know. Like if you want to be a woodworker, artist kind of thing, I don't know where you go to find the kind of tools that you need in that dream, in that profession, in that ambition. But the answer is the same. Ask, dig, figure it out, or find someone to do it for you. So I'm going to have a full episode dedicated in the future about how to find those people when you're ready to and can find need to find someone to help you with all these side stuff, right? So you can focus on the core task at hand of building your business. How do you find the right kind of help? So there's lots of ways to go about that. So again, I'll dig into a future episode, but for right now, I'll just say that for one-off projects, some really good resources are Fiverr or Upwork or just asking a friend for a referral. So for now, just know that those are some ideas if you do want to find somebody to help you with a particular task of ways that you can do that. But for those things that you keep on your plate for now, I know I had my whole note above and whole prior episode on always being professional and taking care of how you put yourself out there. So this is where you get to know the quirkiness that is Jemmy, because I asterisk myself all the time. And here is where you'll hear me do it for the very first time on this show. Mark this day in history. I give you my first asterisk of myself because yes, you want to always present yourself professionally, but you also want to forgive yourself about not getting to everything and the fact that you have to make these hard choices due to your budget, whether a time consideration or a financial one or otherwise. Building a business on your own is hard stuff and full of hard choices. Here's a little parable for you. It's nothing involving animals or normal parables you're probably used to, but if you're taking a friend to go get her nails done, you might find it super curious that she picks the nail tech who herself has the worst manicure. But your friend explains that the nail tech with the worst nails is the one who is taking care of everybody else's. My point? Forgive yourself for the rough edges in your details. If you make a typo in a social media post, don't beat yourself up about it. If you accidentally break a page on your website, cry a little. Okay, that's fine. But then reach out to an expert for help and move on with your day. It'll be okay. Make the choices that you need to make when you need to make them. Learn those extra skills that can save you time and some money. Then put your head down, dig deep, and keep going. Forgive yourself for having a full plate. You are killing it, and that takes time. And speaking of taking time, episode 6 coming up next talks all about that. Time management and budgeting. I called it, I can't come hang. I have to update my website. I almost called it to get laid or get paid, defining priorities. But I digress. Thanks for tuning in. I'm assuming you're listening to this because you're either running a business in your bedroom or you're thinking about it. Well, I want to hear from you. Email me about your business and send me your questions at Jemmy, Jaime, at flintstonemedia.com. Then join the conversation by looking up Dreamers Become Doers on Facebook. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter too as Flintstone Media. For show notes and details on today's episode and to leave me a voice message that can be played on the show, head to bizinthebedroom.com. And remember to hit it hard, keep the lights on.